Hello and welcome to the Mystical Times blog podcast with Michelle Eve. Michelle Eve is working on a big paranormal project, so has chosen 2 poltergeist cases from previous podcast episodes for you this month. Both cases come from Swindon, which is a town in the county of Wiltshire in England, and these cases are rather strange and spooky.
The Poltergeists of Penhill. The house and estate of Penhill in Swindon Wiltshire was built between the years 1952 to 1955 and was built to the town expanding, and it was to become an overflow town in which to house those mainly moving from the City of London. The area on which the estate was built had mainly been farmland. It was a spacious place to live when it was first built, and residents there seemed happy to class Penhill as their home. It was in 1973 when the BBC aired an episode of a programme called Leap in the Dark, Hauntings. The show was about the supernatural, and on this particular episode, it featured a young married couple, Dave and Cheryl Pellymounter, with their 3-year-old son Alan, who lived in a house on Westbury Road, Penhill. They had been experiencing poltergeist activity and had called in an exorcist to rid the house of whatever was causing this activity. The Pellymounters had witnessed their items being moved around, along with the feeling as though they were being watched. The radio was being switched on and off, as well as doors opening and shutting, as though by invisible hands. On the programme, Dave Pellymounter told of how he come home after work, then placed his wallet in his coat pocket, which he hung on a hook in the hallway, and went upstairs to wash himself. When he came down, his wallet was no longer in his coat pocket, so he retraced his steps and looked to see if it had fallen somewhere, but to no avail. He decided to look all over the house, and came to find it under the marital bed, even though he had only visited the bathroom, so it had gone from his coat pocket to under the bed. The strange and eerie goings-on tended to happen downstairs, especially in the hallway. Voices that were muttering would be heard there, and there would also be some rustling noises, as if some invisible persons were walking through the hallway. Their 3-year-old son, Alan, would be very afraid to walk through the hallway, and he would stand before it and just cry. The Pellymounters called in a local vicar, Father Walker, who then called upon the Canon Harmon from the local diocese to conduct an exorcism. The programme showed Canon Harmon performing the exorcism, and Dave Pellymounter said the temperature was very cold during it, and as it progressed, the temperature went back to normal. We now go on to the second poltergeist case that happened 7 years after the Pellymounter case and just half a mile away from the Pellymounters' house. It was 1980, and a teenage couple, Perry and Donna Bryce, lived on Melksham Close, Penhill. The young couple said the activity started as soon as they moved in with their 3-week-old daughter. The first morning they were woken up by their dog howling, and their back door was being banged upon, as though someone was trying to get into the house. They also found that the loft door was fully opened, and that the door of their pantry had been ripped off its hinges. One time, a friend was in the kitchen with Donna, and they were making coffee, when all of a sudden, loud banging on the back door was heard. Again, it sounded as though someone was trying to get into the house. Both women fled in pure fear. The couple decided to sleep in the living room with their baby beside them in a cot. As they lay there trying to go to sleep, the light in the living room kept flashing on and off. As that was happening, a cassette recorder was witnessed levitating and then thrown 10 feet towards the baby's cot. The Bryces turned to the local council after the cassette recorder was thrown, as they felt whatever this force was, it might hurt their baby daughter. It was the council who said they would get an exorcism on the property and would also rehouse the young couple. It would appear rather strange that two houses within half a mile of each other had similar poltergeist activity. It might be suggested that whatever had been on the land before could have some reason as to why these houses had poltergeist activity. The Penhill estate was built on farmland, and it had been owned by the Merton Oxford College estate at one time. There was also a site of a wellhead on Inglesham Road that supplied the water for the local brewery. Inglesham Road is not far away from where the Pellymounters lived. There may have been some cottages on the land for the farm workers that were knocked down when the estate was being built. I did find two interesting and rather morbid accounts that happened when the land was farmland. An inquest was held in 1866 on the death of 19-year-old Elizabeth Legg. Elizabeth had been working as a domestic servant at the time of her death. She had put turpentine into an oven for the purpose of cleaning furniture. As she took the turps out of the oven, her clothes caught fire. She had rushed outside, screaming, and despite quick attendance in putting out the flames, she was to die from severe burns not long after the accident. Her death was recorded as accidental. Another person was to lose their life on the farmland too. It was in 1913, during the winter months at around 5:45 a.m, when a local man, Albert Kirby, who was a carter, came across a dark object lying under a hedge on Penhill Farm. Albert Kirby took a closer look at the object and was horrified to see it was a body of a man laying face down. Albert touched the body, and it was very cold, so he ran and sought the assistance of a police officer, and when they returned to where the dead body lay, a wagon was brought so that the body could be taken away to the mortuary at the local workhouse in nearby Stratton. The body was recognised at the workhouse as Thomas Pert, 52 years of age, and a watercress and mushroom vendor. Thomas Pert had no fixed address, and it had only been the week before that he had stayed at the workhouse on the casual ward. Thomas had had a varied life, joining the Gloucester Regiment as a young man, but after a while deserted the regiment. He had never married and spent most nights sleeping rough in barns, hedges, and occasionally the workhouse. The cause of death for him was exposure. Could these untimely deaths have anything to do with the poltergeist activity in both of these houses? I'll leave that up to you to decide. And I do hope you enjoyed those poltergeist accounts. Till next time.